Hello. Hi. Hello. Hi. God, I got to learn how to start a show. Welcome to another glorious episode of Jeff Has Cool Friends. My name is Jeff May, and you're never going to believe this, but I have brought a cool friend along. You saw the title. You know what's going on. I am very, very excited to have my very good friend, the product development coordinator at Upper Deck, and a man with one of the thickest, nerdiest LinkedIn profiles I've ever seen as far as experience. TJ Shevlin. TJ, how's it going, man?
Great, Jeff. Thanks for having me, man. How you doing?
Great. I'm good. We met at, I believe, PowerCon.
Yeah.
And like officially we met. I think we probably have bumped into each other previously in the past, but we met at PowerCon in 2021.
21, right out of the pandemic, but still kind of like within it.
It was still in Anaheim. PowerCon was still in Anaheim. I was working for Tweeterhead at the time. You were working at Super 7 at the time. And we both just kept going back and forth to each other's booths, admiring all of the stuff that was there. And David Igo, a cool friend and former guest of the show, was just like, oh, it's TJ, he's the best. And we all just kind of were like, hey, we like each other. And so it was really fun.
The toy nerd vibe is always really cool because everybody just wants to get along and, you know, hang out and look at really cool stuff. So it all kind of goes from there.
Unless you end up with one of those like guys that like collects like one specific toy that you have the one he wants.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I don't know. So you are now, you left Super 7, you are now at Upper Deck, which is very exciting for me.
I love it.
Because I have obviously, you know, people know I started I Must Break You. I've been opening cards. And then you were like, by the way, I work at Upper Deck. And I was like, get the hell out of here. Because spoiler alert, I have a box of your cards, right?
That's
these are the ones
baby
that
right there, Marvel Beginnings.
So is this I'm holding up for those of you that can't tell, this is Marvel Beginnings. These were released this year. I have a box of them right here, not a blaster, but a full-on box. These were purchased as a gift, sort of, from Dre Alvarez, my co-host at Nerd, sent me a gift card to Burbank Sports Cards, and I went here and bought myself a Marvel Beginnings.
Yeah, Volume 2, Series 1. That was the first product that I worked on when I started at Upper Deck, and it's just come out. So I'm glad it's in people's hands, but I'm also glad it's in friends' hands because that's one of those, like with trading cards, it's funny because everyone's like, oh, can you get me? Can you get me? Can you get me? And it's like, I can't get me. Like I can barely get my hands on product that I work on. So whenever I see friends of mine get it, I'm always really excited because I'm always happy to like see people get stoked out and like, oh, this character's in there, or I love this character, or why is this character in there? But overall, I love that people get to see kind of what my thought process is for choosing characters, because that's the best part of the job.
This is like one of the main reasons I want you on here is because of what you just said. Is I want to be like, well, okay, why this person, why that person, what's the deal, why this artwork, why that artwork, like, because it's fascinating when you look through these cards and you go through and Upper Deck has had a very good run. They do, and I believe these are separate divisions, right? Like MCU, like Marvel Comics are two different divisions of Upper Deck, right?
Well, it all falls under the umbrella of entertainment. So we have a couple different umbrellas at Upper Deck. As far as trading cards go, it's sports and it's entertainment. But then as far as product goes, there's trading cards and then there's game cards. But so I'm under entertainment, but I work mainly on Marvel publishing. Right now I'm doing some work on AEW as well, which has been kind of fun. But my heart's just working on Marvel cards because, like every kid who grew up reading comic books in the 90s, my gateway into Marvel superheroes is the 1990 Marvel Universe trading cards. So,
which we have opened several packs of
so good
on camera, and it's been a lot of fun. What's your favorite card from that set?
Oh man, that one is actually easy, and I plan on getting it tattooed on me. It is the Art Adams Shadowcat card.
Have you listened to the show before?
No.
Okay, I'm very excited.
My favorite
now card from that set.
Is that?
I fell in love with Shadowcat because of that card.
Yep, it is. Oh my gosh, it is one of my favorite pieces of art in all of Art Adams' career, which is wild to say because I mean, you know, between you know the X-Men and Godzilla and Batman and all of the millions of things that he's done, that card sticks out for me in a way where it is seared into my mind's eye. And I remember being excited when Hasbro did that Excalibur 3-pack, and heartbroken that the inspiration for Kitty isn't the Art Adams trading card. And
Would
I
have been
know I'm
Alan
like one
Davis, I'm
side,
guessing, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
but without the Alan Davis big Kitty Pride hair. It was very kind of muted
Modern.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm still excited it came out. But
So
yeah, the Shadow Cat Art Adams card.
longtime listeners will be thinking that this was a fix, that we talked about this before recording. The way that's set up, I can tell you 100% that that is a massive surprise. That is wild. That is
I mean,
legitimately unhinged.
if I had another favorite in there, the black costume Spidey is a great one.
It's classic.
The motorcycle Cap card is really cool.
Is Motorcycle Cap in that one or in series 2?
He has 2 cards in there. He has the one where he's behind the flag running with the shield, and then there's one with the motorcycle jumping over a rooftop.
Oh, I don't remember that one.
Yeah, he gets 2 cards, Spider-Man gets 3 cards, and Wolverine gets 3 cards.
So I remember Spider-Man had 3.
Wolverine gets 2.
Wolverine got 3. He got brown, yellow, blue, and patch. Yeah. I do not remember the Cap motorcycle one.
I love that
so
card.
now I'm gonna have to go through and look through it. All right, I like that a lot. See, this is what I'm talking about. This is the kind of stuff that I'm really into. I absolutely adore and love that answer, because it for anybody who's followed along, like, I've kind of fallen back into this world. And first off, I don't want to be back in this world. I think this is it's a very dangerous world to be back in.
Yeah, it's a rabbit hole.
And I try so hard to get rid of as much as I can through Patreon. I'm opening cards and I'm just like, I don't have room for all these. I literally, like, I'll open like sports cards or something like that. And like when I'm done parsing them out and there's nothing that I think is like of value, I leave them on my curb.
Oh, so like just whoever wants it?
Yeah, to invite people to rob my house, because they probably assume no, but I do. I'm just like, I have to get rid of these things because I am a collector.
Yeah.
And that's dangerous.
I get it. I've been downsizing so much of what I collect over the years, and while it's made life easier as far as like managing, there's still, like with Marvel Legends, I stopped collecting hardcore and I pivoted into just the X-Men, and then it became just the X-Men from the year 1990 to 1996.
the Claremont, the Claremont to Lobdell,
pretty much. Yeah. And I chose that because Operation Zero Tolerance is one of my favorite Lobdell X-Men stories, and I wanted to make sure that I could represent that in there by having a Bastion figure. So yeah,
I had him on the old version of the show when it was on Sideshow, and that ended up getting a write-up in a couple of things because we talked about some of his less than savory behaviors in the past, and it was a very interesting conversation. Really nice guy, but it was very interesting to talk about that. So you mentioned a question earlier. Okay, well, actually, you know what? Before I get into that, because you did bring that up, I want to talk about some of the other things you've done, because here's what's hard to balance here about this is that aside from the 2 jobs that you've already had, you were a gallery manager for IDW.
Yep, that's right.
You are a judge for the Eisners, which is like the Oscars of comics.
Yeah.
You ran like an art gallery for San Diego Comic-Con, is that right?
No, so I've done panels at Comic-Con and the Comic-Con Museum, but the art gallery that I ran was specifically for IDW Publishing.
Okay.
And it was curated by Kevin Eastman. So, you know, the little turtle nerd in me for 4 years, whatever, is working with one of my heroes, and just, you know, the nicest, truly the nicest man in comics. I was blessed to work with him.
New England's best.
Oh man, for sure.
There's a box of Ninja Turtles cereal at Blast from the Past where I run my comedy show. That's from his collection, and I want it so bad.
Yeah.
I do have my Ninja Turtle. I do have a Grail. I do have a Ninja Turtles Grail.
What's yours?
That I have. I own one. I own somebody else's Grail, actually. I have the Rocksteady resin prototype from the original Playmates run.
Oh, that's nice. Like with the different head at the time?
that was the proof of concept. This is the actual prototype of the final Playmates. And somebody just offered me $6,000 for it. I said no, but
Okay.
The offer was
I
there.
can respect that.
Uh,
$6,000 is a chunk of change when you work in this industry. So
a lot of money.
yeah,
I don't know. Like I'm the thing is it's not going to become less valuable. So I
absolutely.
was kind of sitting there. But so beyond that too, here's a quote that I found because you had some panels at Comic-Con because you're also a panelist, which I think a lot of us in this world are like, and also I've been a panelist.
Yeah.
So here is a note by Beth
Oh,
Accomando, the arts
yeah.
and culture reporter of KPBS, that is, I believe, the San Diego Public Broadcasting
Mhm.
area. And she said, this is her sort of like what to do at Comic Con. Wrote, and just a note that TJ Shevlin, who I met at the IDW Comic Gallery years ago, is on a couple of panels, and his joyous enthusiasm for pop culture will enhance any panel. That quote perfectly summarizes who you are as a person, in my opinion.
That really means a lot. First, I mean, shout out to Beth. I didn't even have to pay her to say that.
Yeah.
Beth is, I can go out and say that everybody who is connected to pop culture in San Diego, Beth Accomando is their favorite person.
Oh,
She is the absolute best. She is the epitome of what is right with San Diego's pop culture scene, whether it's comic books, film, music, you name it. You can be a person who has no love for Godzilla and you talk to her for 3 minutes and all of a sudden you're the biggest Godzilla fan because of how passionate she is for this stuff. So for her to say something like that, game recognized game. So
yeah.
it's really flattering.
And you two really do reflect that. But so like as I was doing my research and I did come across that quote, I was like, well, I have to write this down. Like
Thank
I
you.
can't not bring this up because it is sort of like it is in a way one of the reasons I had you on is because you're such a nerd and you get so excited about stuff. Whereas like I forget what convention you and I were at together where you were like you brought up how like you couldn't wait for Phil Jimenez's panel.
WonderCon.
And it was WonderCon, and I was like,
Yep.
"Oh, he's one of my best friends." Like,
I
and so I literally like went in, pulled him in, and I was like, "This is my friend TJ,"
it,
because I wanted to connect that to. He's just the best.
I will tell you that was, you work in this industry a long time and you learn how to kind of compose yourself around the people whose work means so much to you
Mhm.
because nobody casually likes things in this circle. We are all passionate about it. We wear our hearts on our sleeves and we will talk about it until you are tired of listening, but we are still excited to talk. And
Not to
I,
name a different card company, but we are fanatics.
I we are in that moment there with Phil, and if he hears this or if he's listening, I'm going to say this and I'm sure he's going to love it. That is one of the highlights of my life in comic books is getting to meet him and talk about the books that he worked on that have left like indelible marks on me. And there was one specifically, and another job that I hold, I teach at a nonprofit out here, Little Fish Comic Book Studio, our storytelling instructor. And I use an issue that Phil drew on an issue of Robin.
Mhm.
And it's Robin issue 12, and it is the issue where Tim and his girlfriend, they go out on a date, and these, guys keep being loud in the movies. Tim's like, hey, can you guys shut up? Next page, it's those guys outside with Tim, and they beat him up in front of his girlfriend. And he's all angry because he could have taken both of those guys out with both hands tied behind his back. And he has to maintain the secret identity. So he has to look like,
Yeah.
clean dude in front of his girlfriend, gets beat up by these guys. And that book, and the reason I single this out in particular, Robin always had a stream of good artists. Tom Lyle, Tom Grummett,
Oh
Norm
yeah.
Brayfogle, Mike Waringo, you name it. And for what was considered a B-level Batman book, the art teams on there have always been spectacular.
Really crisp. Yeah.
But there is a double page spread that Phil does in that issue where it's Dick and Tim as Batman and Robin. Dick's using the Studebaker from the 40s as his Batmobile, and they just look so, so cool. And it has always stuck out with me. I think that was early on as a comics reader, is where I really learned, and I learned it from two people, which are three people, really, I would say, which are perfect. And it was Phil Jimenez, and then by proxy George Perez,
Yeah.
and then Norm Brayfogle. Those were artists where it was these are artists who draw for stories. It's not about poses or glamour shots or the
Not about
inability.
selling the art.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were there to let you know that these were real tangible characters in the same way that the writers that they worked with did. And so between that, between Tempest, between always drawing the definitive Donna Troy, yeah, that moment with Phil. Look, see, I'm rambling.
I know
So
it's not a ramble though, because Phil's great. I mean, you guys can go back to any of the episodes that I've had Phil on and revisit it. He is just an absolute delight, one of the most talented people in the world.
mhm.
Weirdly, one of the only people I like. I once I become a certain level of friend with a person, I no longer can feel comfortable asking them for art, for like a sketch or something like that. So he's like one of the people that I like really want in a sketchbook that I don't have the audacity to ask.
I I love that you said that too because I own a lot of sketches of different members of the Titans through the years, and
Oh,
it's
really?
different artists. Like I've there's a Jim Lee Nightwing in there. There's a Matt Wagner Speedy. There
Oh, wow.
Eric Larson Cyborg. Like I've got a lot, and Phil is the only person who I want to draw Tempest and Donna. And at some point, I'm gonna make this happen. Like it's happening, but those spots for those two characters are reserved specifically for Phil. So I get you.
I will absolutely be texting him once this episode goes up and be like, you might want to listen to this. So it's very funny too, because like when we look at that and you started naming things off, like I have a similar sketchbook, but it's actually ecstatics.
Oh,
Marvel
yeah,
ecstatics.
my
And
color, yeah.
I do not have a You Go Girl in there because I'm saving it for specifically for Mike Allred.
Oh, that's
Because
great.
I just and it's just like it's filled with really like I got a George Perez in there. I have,
Oh, I
Katie
do need
Cook
to
did
say I do have a George Perez Nightwing, and he was the only person who was allowed to draw the disco costume.
That's not so bad, is it?
No, not at all. I didn't
No.
mean to cut you off, but you
No.
mentioned George, and I had to throw that out there.
Yeah, there's one my sketchbook was a non-repeater, except one of my very good friends did a second version of Venus de Milo.
Yeah.
Which was like totally fine. But it was actually the very talented and amazing John Schnepp, who is no longer with us. And I've never shared that photo, that art, because it felt so personal to me because we were just like really, I think we were like hanging out in like Palm Springs Comic Con, just like goofing off and having a good time. And he was like, let me get in that. I love ecstatics. I want to be in that sketchbook.
Oh,
And I've never ever shared that on social media because he did pass not terribly long after that.
it's yours. Yeah.
And it's mine. Yeah. I've shared all the other ones, which are pretty fantastic too.
I think that's one of those things that we as comics fans need to learn sometimes is that not everything needs to be shared or for public consumption. Some
Mhm.
things need to be personal, they need to be yours. And that moment needs to stay with you.
Yeah. I'm going to be working sort of like in certain directions about this. And I have the main
Yeah.
question that I have is like, what is it like being a judge for the Eisners? Like, what's the process by that? Like, what
Ooh,
do you have to do?
wow. So,
Because this
for,
is like to reply, like I know not everybody who listens is a comic book fan. I know a lot of people are horror fans or sports fans, or they like all the different things. So I'm
yeah,
trying to explain to this, and before you gave the answer, I didn't mean to cut you off after
no,
asking the question, but the Eisners are
we're
the
East
big,
Coasters, man. We cut each other off. It
yeah,
just happens.
the big. Like these are. I'm not kidding when I say those are the Oscars
Yes.
for that. Now there are other awards. There are the Harvey Awards, and there are different awards all over
Ringos.
yeah,
Yeah.
the Ringos, which are in Baltimore Comic Con, I believe. And so it's like it's all these different, but these are the Oscars. The Eisners are the big deal. Eisner Award winning is the thing that people, I mean, people don't chase awards when they're making comics, but they do. Let's be honest, like it happens. So like this is a big deal in comics.
Yeah.
So like how do you maintain the integrity? Like what's the process of being a judge?
Man. So when I found out that I was being asked to be a judge, it was one of those, but wait, don't they know that I'm nobody? So that was it was a really kind of surreal moment. It was very like I have to pinch myself because you don't believe it. And then you get explained like I was explained why I was asked to be a judge. And to kind of give a little inside baseball on this, I was a retailer at one point. I was,
At St. Mark's, is that
at
right?
St. Mark's Comics. Shout out to the homies,
See,
Industry
you were the
City,
store
in New
manager
York.
there, weren't you, for a while?
Yes. Hmm.
I told you I
Shop
did my
there.
research, baby.
No, I love it. I shopped there as a kid. Eventually, ended up working there as an adult and
I did
working for
that at
St.
That's Entertainment in Worcester, Massachusetts.
That's it. Look, I mean, Adam Hughes got his start working at a comic shop in Jersey, if I'm not mistaken. So
It's pretty rad.
yeah, like there are a lot of us who end up in this industry, and the starting point is working at a comic book store, and it opens up the doors. And it getting back to the original point, but I got to say this: it's because comics have a symbiotic relationship with retail, and everybody ends up knowing everybody at some point. So it's pretty cool. So yeah, I've been a retailer, I've an art gallery manager, I'm an educator, I've done assistant editorial work and product development. I do panels, all of these things. I do, stuff with comics historically. I do stuff with comics, contemporarily. So it was one of those things where um, I only ever did all of these things because I love comic books. And I tell everybody all the time, comic books have given me so much. I just want to be at a point where I was going to be able to give back to comic books. And the Eisners were the way that I was able to give back to it. And so when Jackie Estrada asked me to be a judge for this past year, I mean, what is it? New Avengers issue 3, when Bendis has Spider-Man say, Captain America asks you to be an Avenger. How do you say no to that?
Yeah, right.
So
Like that's a big deal.
yeah, so of course, super flattered. And I mean, there are so many incredible women and men in comics who have been judges and who have really put their heart into what they do. And one of the hardest parts about being a judge, and I say you put your heart into it, but there are times where you have to cut your heart out, and you have to remember this isn't about what's your favorite.
Oh, I have a question about that too,
Yes,
because this is actually bleeding into. So, like, I want to make it seem like this was my idea to answer this
I
question.
love it. Yeah.
So, you worked for IDW.
Hmm.
You have it's weird. Art is subjective.
Yes.
Judgment in all cases is supposed to be objective.
Hmm.
So, you have to objectively award a subjective concept and maintain, like, does you having worked for IDW, does that flavor your judgment in a way, not in a positive or negative way, but like, are you more hyper aware if like they're nominated for something, you're like, just remember you're looking at this from this perspective or whatever, like, because that's got to be really difficult.
In some ways it is, and I'll give you a really great example since you used IDW as,
For those of
you
you that
know,
don't know, IDW, they make currently, like, I think their biggest title is Ninja Turtles right now, which
yes.
you are a character in, which we're
Yes.
going to
Yeah.
talk about later. You are an actual character in the Ninja Turtles universe. We'll get into that.
It's pretty cool. So this year, IDW had a handful of books that were up for consideration for nomination. And the book that I was so excited about when I got to sit down and read it was Star Trek issue 400. And it was Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly. And those guys are doing spectacular work on a franchise that most people love, but not everybody loves to read Star Trek comics. Now, shout out to IDW, because between, Sarah Gatos, overseeing Star Trek for years over there. I mean, she's no longer there, but between Scott and David Tipton, Peter David doing stuff. I mean,
I think
there is
Jody
always
Hauser writes some stuff for that
Jody
too.
Hauser. Yeah,
He's
there's
great. Yeah.
always been a slew of amazing talent that works on Trek over there. But I always felt this isn't a Trek thing. A lot of this is kind of a licensed title thing. Licensed titles are often overlooked as not real comics. And I won't get too into it, but years ago at Comics Pro, there was someone in the industry who said that licensed titles aren't real comics, and they're also not the real thing they're based on. So a Star Wars comic isn't real Star Wars. I think that that's nonsense, and it discounts anybody and everybody who puts their heart and soul into licensed titles.
Yeah.
And you can look at someone and say, well, Ninja Turtles is just a licensed title. But then anybody else who really knows comics knows no. Ninja Turtles is the indie comic that proved you can make it without having to sell out.
Side note,
So
we used to get a ton of those first prints at That's Entertainment because of our location.
look where you were, right?
Yeah.
So I always find that to be such a nonsensical way of looking at comics. And again, it's a tale as old as time. It's, you know, indie comics are real comics, superheroes aren't. Superheroes are real comics, indie comics aren't.
Yeah,
All of
everybody.
this stuff where everybody wants to have a cap on what gets to be real comic books. And when everybody on the Eisner Judging Committee this year all saw the value in that Star Trek 400 getting nominated for best single issue.
Do the
The
companies
West
nominate them, or like how do they get nominated?
companies put the publishers submit books
Okay.
for consideration.
Okay. FYC.
They'll run
I
through
get it.
what they think is all the best of the best that they've put out that year to go within different categories. And then it's our job to just read. And I'm going to tell you, being an Eisner judge more than anything, and any Eisner judge, no matter who it is, from Neil Gaiman all the way down to a nobody like me, will tell you being an Eisner judge makes you a better comic book reader.
Because
It makes
you're spending more time paying attention to the intent, the artwork, the
Mhm.
pacing.
It makes you understand not just comic books better, but it makes you understand personal creative process better. It makes you understand why these creators are telling the stories that they're telling. I often like, and look, there are comic books that I don't like. That's fine because I don't need to like everything. And I don't want to like everything because if everything that comes across my plate is, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever, that says more about my inability to discern what I think is good versus what I think is bad. Now, you said it before, there's subjective and objective, right?
Yeah.
So there are things that are subjectively bad. And that's because, well, it's not for me, maybe for someone else. Then there are the things where it's like we don't need to go into detail, but this is
There's a variant cover that just got shared over the internet by a very, very well-known X-Men artist of an
my
X-Men book.
my favorite X-Men character on there.
Sure. I get it. Not as much as I don't want to reveal that. And I looked at it and I was like, and they were like, can you believe they're putting out this crap? And it was the first time I ever agreed with somebody that says, can you believe they're putting out this crap? Because for those of you that are not aware, comics had a bit of a tumult about what, half a dozen years ago or something like that, like where a very, very well-known editor at Marvel posted sort of just a photo of other women in comics going out to get milkshakes, and weak men had a meltdown, and they created this thing essentially called Comicsgate, where they were going to say that they were going to be the gatekeepers of what is actual comics, and they would started harassing. And like, I mean, we think of like, you know, the woman that they went after famously, Heather Antos, is an amazing person, an amazing talent. And they just couldn't, it's all these like old men with bad backs and viewpoints that just went like really awful. And so you get comics is having a moment just like politics right now.
Yeah.
Where there's a culture flame war in comics and people are choosing sides, and generally the right side is the side that doesn't try to bully women out of a space.
I've never had the pleasure of meeting Heather, but I've been a fan of her work. And you know, you're a comics nerd when you're a fan of editors.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, even as a kid, like my favorite editor was Jordan Gorfinkel on the Batman books. And this is off the dome here. So
Denny O'Neil for me.
You know, and Jordan worked under Denny. So that was great. Heather was at IDW after my time there, but I think IDW was better for having her there. And you know,
Star Trek 400 out of that.
Yeah. So you know, you said it's small minds, and you know, none of those people are worth even giving, you know, even more of a mention to, because it's nonsense. But I will say, kind of pivoting back to the Eisner thing, there were books that were to different degrees better than others, but it was a joy running through so many of those books in there. And I mean, just incredible comics.
How many books did you have to read and how long? Like, first off, I'm assuming that the FYC stuff is provided for you to read. Like they send it to you, just like when the studios do that for like the SAG Awards, everybody who's a member
like the screeners and all that. Yeah, all of that's provided to us by all the different publishers, and there are some
Yeah,
that
how
will.
many books you get?
There are some publishers that will send everything that they've done that year, and then there are some publishers who will send what they think best represented what they put out within that year's time frame. And I was more grateful for that.
Who sent everything? Because I love
Uh,
that company. Whatever company that is, they're awesome. Like
uh,
that's not a thing to hide through, by the way.
no, 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 no.
Was it like Boom? It seems like something Boom would do.
Boom definitely did, and like to the point where we got variant covers, and it's
Yeah,
like,
like
but
that.
I
It
have
seems
the
like they
issue
just
here.
Boom seems like a very generous company.
They're awesome,
Yeah.
and they do. And to echo my earlier point of licensed comics being real comics, I didn't grow up a Power Rangers fan,
Oh,
and
their
they're my
Power Ranger stuff is doing great, right?
those Power Rangers books are everything that a good Teen Titans book should be. So shout out to them
And
on that.
incredibly popular too.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was actually really nervous for Boom because of Disney taking Marvel. And their Boom, for those of you that don't know, Boom Comics really got their push by doing licensed Disney work. Like that was like their big deal. Like
stuff there.
they made that great Darkwing Duck run, and like they did really good work. And then Disney bought Marvel, and I think a lot of people in the comics industry were like, "The Boom," and Boom really did knock it out of the park moving forward from there.
They were very good at knowing what works for them. They are still very good at knowing what works for them. And I don't publishers do, and your mileage may vary on this, but publishers do poorly when they're chasing Marvel and DC. It's not going to happen, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be making sure that you are absolutely the best publisher that you can be, putting out killer books, getting great talent and all that. And saying you shouldn't be chasing Marvel and DC is not a shot at them, and it's not disparaging, but the truth is those are big mega machines that it's just not going to happen. It is any wrestling promotion who is chasing WWE.
Yeah.
Even if your product is better than theirs, you're never going to be able to do the numbers that they do. And it's
when I worked for Tweeterhead for a year doing their social media and stuff, I said the biggest benefit you have is that you're not Sideshow, because Sideshow was so big. And I was like, you have an opportunity to do whatever you want with your presence in this world. This when I say this world, I don't mean like Earth. It's like it's not a kid I was raising, but I was just like in this world right here, like the voice you get to put out. Yeah, you get to put whatever voice out you want. And I thought that was really refreshing. Like sometimes being the underdog is actually a much more advantageous position than people give it credit for.
Yeah,
but also much more harrowing as well.
I will tell you though, one of the books that I ended up loving so much in my Eisner judging process, I'm going to tell everybody right now, the publisher to be watching in the next couple of years is Ablaze, because the work that they're doing, the talent that they have is outstanding. But there was a book that they're putting out called Traveling to Mars by Mark Russell, who did the Superman, the Atomic Age. He's done a lot of really great stuff. But that Traveling to Mars book was probably one of the best sci-fi stories I've read this year. And I'm telling you now, when that gets made into a movie, it's going to be everybody's favorite sci-fi movie that year.
Really?
That is how good that book was. It is exciting, and it is heart-wrenching, and it is suspenseful in ways that you don't expect out of the word suspense, but it also finds ways to kind of break your heart. I love it. It was a roller coaster of a book. But here's where it gets crazy. You were talking about my time at IDW. Does that color my judgment as far as the way I judge?
Mm-hmm.
When I was announced as a judge, immediately everybody, it was, well, guess Nightwing's winning this year because he's like my favorite DC superhero. Okay. Love Nightwing. And Nightwing won for best continuing series this year. So I got a lot of shit from my friends.
Did you vote for Nightwing?
Oh, absolutely. I did. That book was full disclosure for anybody reading this, anybody listening to this who's like, wow, that's a dick move. Pardon the pun. No disrespect intended to anybody, but the New 52 was the first time I ever stopped reading DC books.
You know what's so funny? That's actually when I started reading more.
Yeah. Oh,
Because the stuff that they did, I thought was really good. I thought there was like a lot of really good stuff in there that they were trying. I understand it's the trying to clean it up. It's sort of like when Joe Quesada removed Spider-Man's marriage, and you're like, this is ugly, but what we get afterwards is fine. I thought there were some great books. The ones that I liked the most died out of the New 52.
Those first 5 issues of Aquaman are fantastic,
Right?
but those were going to be coming out without the New 52, so they just slapped that on there. But
I Vampire was great. Frankenstein, Agent of Shade was fantastic. Batman was great, obviously, for obvious reasons. Everybody liked that Batman.
Didn't do it for me.
No, oh, that's too bad.
No, and look, but that's what I mean. Like everybody's got their thing, and I don't think anybody is necessarily wrong with the way they enjoy things. I just remember feeling like, oh, that's great. You throw out the baby with the bathwater, and everybody who came before, they don't matter anymore. And even with Crisis on Infinite Earths and the push that Dick Giordano made to kind of streamline things for new readers, longtime readers still mattered. It wasn't, taking one for granted to get the other. And that's how the New 52 felt. So getting to the point of this is Dick Grayson was one of those characters that I really thought suffered pretty hard as far as that era. When
didn't they make him a spy?
Yeah, and then he got shot in the head and lost his memory, and then he was Rick Grayson, and no one can convince me that the black and red Nightwing costume is good because it's not. But Taylor, and that first issue he does of Nightwing issue 78, one of my best friends back home, Chris, he's like, dude, you have to read this. And I said, nah, I'm okay. The Injustice stuff that Tom Taylor does is not my thing. I don't know if I'm really interested in this. He's like, no. Like, this is what you've been missing. You have to read this. And so I read that first issue and just absolutely blown away. I couldn't believe that the characters that I love were acting like the way they act again, but there's still forward momentum for new readers.
You got your old friends back. Yeah.
Yeah. But people who are new to this weren't being left behind either.
I like that.
That was really cool.
I would also like to add that when they're like, great, Nightwing's going to win. Congratulations. And it's like, do you think that TJ is the only person who votes for anything in the Eisners? There are hundreds of Eisner judges, correct? Like they're 5.
5.
Really? 5. It was way off of that information. Holy shit. Okay. Well, maybe that is your fault then. But that means probably 2 other people picked it at least.
Everybody was laughing on the Eisner committee. I mean, you guys got to understand, I have a big old Nightwing tattoo on my leg. Like, this is my favorite character. But everybody in the Eisner judging committee all came away like, that's a really good superhero book.
Yeah.
And it's because it's character driven. There was a writer. Well, first, let me say the book got nominated because it's not a good superhero comic book. It's a good comic book. Mm-hmm. And we are there to judge good comic books, no matter what the genre is. For best continuing series, it was really incredible because there is a person in comics that I love whose work is incredibly meaningful to me, who basically felt like the Eisner judges this year snubbed superhero books, and that, once again, the Eisners don't look at superheroes the way they look at other titles. There were 16 different superhero nominations through, I think, 5 or 6 different categories. And the 3 superhero titles that got nominated for best continuing series, which is, a big deal because that's the best monthly title, right?
That's like the best picture nomination.
Essentially, those 3 superhero titles that got nominated in there were Nightwing, Daredevil, and She-Hulk. In the world of comic book retail, those are all considered B titles.
Yep. Yeah, those are bomb. Those are like side titles.
Yeah. Look, I love Daredevil. I love She-Hulk, and I love Nightwing. But Daredevil is basically, top level B Marvel character. She-Hulk is derivative
of Bruce Campbell.
Hulk. Yeah. She-Hulk is a derivative of the Hulk, and Nightwing essentially is a derivative of Batman. So to retailers, it's, well, okay, sure, but what about Batman and what about the Hulk? And in Daredevil's case, well, okay, what about Spider-Man?
But like, didn't Immortal Hulk previously did great?
Yeah, absolutely it did.
So, yeah. It's just every year is different, right?
And that's the point. We all talk about what gets nominated. because we think if the book that we love doesn't get nominated or the book that we love doesn't win, then that means that got snubbed or they don't know what they're talking about or they don't pay attention. And the truth was the voting process for us is incredibly intense when it's coming to the end. We basically, we're sequestered away and no internet contact, no nothing. And it's, let's get through all this. Time to decide what's it going to be. And everybody who is a judge has categories that they are experts in. My categories that I was the expert in were continuing series, mini series, cover art. So like anything that is monthly titles, because the floppies are my jam. Then we had one where it's best all, like one who focuses on all ages, 13 to 16, 16 to 18, best, library, best collected edition. And everybody has that thing that they are an expert in to help us get to that place where we can pare down so that all the judges can read what's been pared down. And it's a lot of it really, like I said, it takes a lot of genuine objectivity, but it also takes it takes a lot of real heart to do this because I love comics to do this.
Yeah, it is good. I love, it's funny. I didn't really I was really busy at the time that all the Eisner Award stuff was announced. And I actually kind of like everything kind of glossed over me a little bit. And I felt bad because usually I'm like right on it. And I just kind of missed that. So here's a funny thing we do, by the way. We're going to get back to this stuff a little bit, but I don't know if you know this, but I have producers. It's very exciting. Yes, I do. And if they,
there's a real professional output.
You can be a producer as well. You can head over to patreon.com/Jeff May. If you sign up for the producer or two-faced tier, I will say your name on my show. So we're going to take a little bit. We're going to thank some. We're going to thank some. That sounds like fun, right? So we're going to send a very, very special thank you to the following producers, and we can talk about them if we want. A lot of nipple talk in the producers. It's a very professional room that we got going on here. So shout out to the Wandering Jolly Holly Unpierced Left Nipple of the Christmas Fool. Shout out to Mashed Potatoes Are the Brioche Buns of Side Dishes. I went on a podcast talking about how I think mashed potatoes are overrated, and people will not let me forget that.
I might not let you forget that.
That's fine. That's okay. I think they don't do much that stuffing doesn't do better, but it's fine. We can fight about it later. Shout out to, I'm going to start calling Yoda Old Grogu just to see what happens. Shout out to Happy Holidays from the ghost of Dave Thomas, the Wendy's guy.
Like Dave Thomas from Wendy's?
Yeah. He's like, Happy Holidays. Have a fresh, never frozen holiday.
So even if he's not cutting corners?
I'm sorry?
Even in the afterlife, he's not cutting corners?
Never at all. That's a good bit. Shout out to that scene in Meet Joe Black where Brad Pitt dies. That's what they used to call me. I am the scene in Lost City where Brad Pitt dies. It's good to see that name come back. Shout out to Aldo Vargas, is a couple months behind on his podcast, but he'll hear this eventually. And when he does, he might want to update his name. Shout out to the lovely Carson. Shout out to Mr. Billy Beck. Shout out to the 2B Terror Bunny, says the strike may be over, but egg Bob Iger anyway, because shout out to Justin Wood, Bart Fartigan, Dan Adamski, world's humblest man. Shout out to the amazing Norm from Cheers. Shout out to Norm. Shout out to Dan Hackroyd. Shout out to Mindfreak 555 says stop Cop City. I agree, Mindfreak 555. Shout out to Normal Man Andrew McGuire. Shout out to check out this month's Nerd with Dre and Jeff. And he says, Jeff, I can say whatever you want. This month, spoiler alert, we are covering something that people requested that we cover last month. We did that. And we're going to have a Patreon exclusive second episode that only patrons can hear. So if you want to hear that, go to patreon.com/Jeff May. I'll give you a hint. It is related to something TJ does. All right. And shout out to, oh, he wants me to say this too. Get your Coca-Cola and cheese pizza. And tune into last month's Nerd on Home Alone 2. Shout out to watch me use these prehensile nipples to pick up pennies off the floor. That is the most unnerving name.
There's also a visual I didn't want that I got.
It's unnerving. Yeah. And then we have the Oatmeal Savage, less unnerving. And then finally, Call Me Sean or whatever. So those are the producers of this episode. And if you want to become a producer, head on over to patreon.com/Jeff May. You can also get stuff like cards that TJ had a hand in. spoiler alert. Guess what I'm going to be opening tomorrow upon release. If you're on Patreon, I'm going to be opening these Marvel Beginnings cards to celebrate TJ as being my guest. Why I couldn't imagine having you on as a guest and then being like, so we're going to open these Topps wrestling card. Like that wouldn't make sense.
Thank you.
Which we did open Topps wrestling cards last week and they were very nice.
But I have a Bret Hart one on my desk at work, so I'm not mad at that.
I know some great people that work there too. I know a lot of wonderful people that work in these card companies, so I'm very excited about it. So we're back here talking about this. The Eisners, a lot of work. I didn't realize only 5 people. That's insane. So we're gonna go and make that shift to Upper Deck. And I want to talk more about Upper Deck because I need to know who decides what got put in Marvel Beginnings.
So first, let me preface Marvel Beginnings by saying this. The whole point of Marvel Beginnings is to explore the history of Marvel Comics from 1938, Motion Picture Funnies Weekly #1, first Submariner, all the way to everything going on today. And it is to kind of celebrate the Marvel publishing history, Atlas, Timely, you name it, because that's something that's not really celebrated all the time as far as Marvel publishing goes. It's incredible to see Marvel's Golden Age characters make it into product like this because they do have an incredibly rich Golden Age history. When you think Marvel's Golden Age, you really do only think Cap, Bucky, the Submariner, Human Torch. So
not a lot of was it like Miss America?
I was going to mention her. We get to have Miss America. And
they turned her into a bigot in Dead Girl. I thought that was a very interesting way to put when they go to hell and just a bunch of old racist like 1940s greatest generation energy. You're like, yeah, that probably does make sense. Where she's really uncomfortable around black people.
Yeah, the Wizard we get in there, the Angel, all these, the Vision, all these old characters with old names that eventually get repurposed in for Stan and Jack. But it's a lot of fun because it really is just kind of celebrating the Marvel universe. When I started though at Upper Deck, this product was already in the works. There was a coordinator, me, had chosen a checklist. Now a lot of it was already in the works, but there were characters on the checklist where being polite about it, you can't write a bio about this character. So I'll give you a perfect example. Okay?
Good, because I was about to ask for one.
All right. Prosh. Does that ring any bells with you?
Prosh.
Mm-hmm. Prosh.
No.
Is the name of the sentient ship from X Factor that the X Factor team used when they were going up against Apocalypse.
Of course. I don't know why we didn't think to bring that
How
up.
could I not?
X Factor 6.
Around that period. Mm-hmm.
Simonson run. Yeah.
Yeah. And Beast had really gained a kinship with this ship and was very close to it.
A kinship, if you
Waka
want.
Waka. And so there was a part of me that felt like the previous coordinator, and no disrespect intended, their goal was let me get as deep cut as I can. The problem with my role is I have to think about my type team and what am I setting up with the ability to write about. Mm-hmm. I have to think about my photo team and what images can they use to make a trading card of. So if I'm choosing characters that neither of them can work with, that's not their fault. That's my fault.
Yeah.
And so when I took this product over, there were a lot of characters that ended up getting kicked out and replaced with other characters. Now, because
Prosh, for example,
and Prosh, the only fitting character I could replace it with was the Beast.
Is that your favorite character?
The Beast is my all-time favorite X-Men, period. So it worked out great replacing Prosh with Beast because of the friendship that they had. So that was more like to pop me. I thought it was kind of fun. Yeah. But I also, look, when you think the X-Men, you think Wolverine first. I totally understand that. And I get that, especially right now in comics, Beast is nobody's favorite character, but he's still my guy. And
I think you've literally just violated the sentence you just said. You're like, Beast is nobody's favorite character, but he is my favorite character.
Yeah.
You are
Oh,
not alone, by the way. And honestly, if I'm going to be 100% honest, I bet a lot of guys that look like us
yeah.
love Beast, because Beast I think I think Beast is more people's favorite than you realize, because Beast is like the like shy nerd.
Well,
And
he's
like, I don't
become
know
the
if you've heard
biggest,
of comics,
of
but
course,
like
but
a
he's
lot of the
become
fans
the
are shy
biggest
nerds.
villain in the X-Men's corner of the Marvel universe now, and everybody hates him now because of that. So,
But that's
like
interesting.
when Mr. Sinister is jealous of how evil scientist you are, you know you've fallen down a path.
But
But
that's like wrestling. But that's a lot like wrestling, though.
yeah,
Like
it's
like
the heel
if you
turn.
don't have the dramatic, like I do feel like there are comics fans that want their ship to move in one direction very, very slowly and never lose sight of the land from which they left. And
Yes,
that to me is the sign of somebody who does not take interest in storytelling. That
growth,
instead they want a
absolutely.
pacifier to suck on.
And I think it's interesting. Like I haven't been mad that Beast is basically a villain now, but I am glad that Marvel just solicited that, Hero Beast is coming back, and there's going to be a whole thing with it with Wonder Man. So that's going to be fun because
And
then you
they're
get the
best buds.
Avengers. Hell yeah, it's one of my favorite
Their,
duos.
their Marvel Comics Presents runs were so great. Yeah.
Oh, it's awesome. So it's cool to see that, but it is not out of the realm for the Beast to be a villain, considering Cyclops has been one, and Jean has been one, and Angel has been one. The only founding X-Men who hasn't become a villain yet is Iceman. So it's perfectly in line at this point. But yeah, so
Friend of the show, Sean Ashmore. Shout out to Iceman.
yeah, oh, his Iceman's great.
Yeah, he's
So when I'm building a checklist, and so what I learned from having to rework that checklist is um everybody's favorite character has to show up in a card set, no matter what you may think of that character. So Beginnings was really cool because right now I'm working on volume 2 series 2, and then I'm already starting up volume 2 series 3. So with this product, that enables me to use characters that I love, characters that I like, and characters that I absolutely can't stand. But there's going to be someone who's like, "Oh my god, I can't believe he's in there."
finally, you
That's
put
awesome.
Maggot in there. Great.
I got a soft spot for Maggot. I love Joe Madureira X-Men. So
That's a good run.
um,
Yeah, you said 90 to 96. That's a good
that's right.
time to love the X-Men.
But I'll give you an example of a character who I just absolutely cannot stand, and I've put him in 2 products already, and it's Doctor Druid.
Yeah,
I
just
cannot stand
don't care
Doctor
about
Druid.
him. Yeah,
Like
you
he
don't even like. It's not that you don't care. You have an opinion, and that opinion is negative.
Yeah, like there are characters I don't care about one way or other. That's fine, whatever. Like he is the worst, and I want to see She-Hulk throw him off a cliff.
Right.
But then it's fun though because there are characters where it's, oh man, I love this character, whether it's I loved that run when I was a kid, or I think that costume is cool, or I think the concept for the character is awesome, and I would love to have the trading cards be a platform for that character. So, 3 characters that I've been able to do that with. And they all have their fan bases. Maybe one of them doesn't. I get a lot of crap for him. But 3 characters I've been using quite a bit are Sleepwalker.
I was
Um,
going to bring up Sleepwalker, so
I love
I'm
Sleepwalker.
glad you said that. Yeah,
Uh,
boy are we boys of the 90s, aren't we?
oh, for sure, man. I'll
Sleepwalker,
mention
for
Dark
those of you that
at some point.
don't
Don't
know,
worry.
Sleepwalker was one of these like new early 90s rookie comics. Like he came out around the same time they did the new Ghost Rider, they did
Dark Hawk.
Darkhawk, and it really was a fascinating story. It's basically a character that can only exist when its host is dreaming. He is essentially a dream parasite that is a superhero when he is outside. It is insane. He looks like a bug alien.
There is a character that he has never crossed paths with that I'm still shocked that Marvel hasn't done. And I will tell you when we are not recording because I would love to pitch it at some point to them. But so it's Sleepwalker, Jack of Hearts, who I think has one of the coolest costumes ever, and then Stingray.
I mean, those are great. So it's like Armor Wars energy there.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Stingray has there are 2 characters in the late 60s that I think have 2 of the best designed costumes in the history of Marvel Comics. One of them is a major character, and then one is Stingray. The other one is Yellow Jacket. I love
It's a great
Hank Pym's
design.
Yellow Jacket costume. It's Buscema at his best. It just looks cool.
Seems cumbersome to have
Because
those. He's got these giant like
yeah,
shoulder, they're like shoulder pads, but they're more like
wing
they're like kind
vest.
of like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like if you made like a fin, they're
Yeah,
like shoulder fins, but they're like ovular. It's insane, but it works so
it's
well.
so good though. Like
Yeah.
that I can gush about the Yellow Jacket costume, but it's one of those costumes for me where every costume designer, every comic book artist at some point needs to look at that costume and realize why no one's ever needed to redesign it for Hank.
Also, really well done for the MCU and Ant-Man. They actually
Yeah.
really did put that into a practical, because by the way, it would be the most impractical thing in the world. It's like, stop demanding comic book accurate costumes in movies. They would look ridiculous.
I know there's a part of me that would love them, but then the older I get, the more pragmatic I get about that. So I understand. But it's fun getting to be the keeper of the content. Like I choose the characters, I choose the era for those characters when it's original. So
That's one of the big questions that I had for you, is like,
okay.
what images are chosen? Like, why? Is it because like this is when they debuted and its beginnings, or is it the best version of this outfit art that you've seen?
So with beginnings, for example, I'll work with our photo team to try to make sure that we're getting, if we're not using the first appearance, as close to an issue around there as possible, because we want it to represent the beginnings of those characters. Now there are some characters that have debuted in the 90s, so the artwork then compared to now, there's not a huge leap as far as the
Yeah.
changes go between the Silver Age and today, or the Bronze Age and today, but it's still nice to see that character's evolution. So like Husk, for example, I big soft spot for Generation
Husk is a
X.
character that peels her own skin off to
Yeah.
reveal whatever she needs as her skin underneath. Yeah.
Now, this is where it could be kind of fun because Husk debuts with Generation X, so of course I'm going to use Chris Bachalo artwork for her. And then for her card where it's her today, because I like to pop myself, I would still use Chris Bachalo artwork of her today. Like pull one from Wolverine and the X-Men, what Jason Aaron's run on there, and you can see not just the evolution of her as a character,
The
but then
artist.
you get to see the evolution of Chris's work. So it's fun being able to choose things like that. I really try to think a lot about what serves the character best in this trading card, and in turn, how will that serve my photo team and my type team best. So
How do the artists react to having their work used in the trading cards? Do they love that? Is that
there are
really
a lot
exciting for them? Yeah.
there are a lot of them that do. Then there are others where it's like, oh, okay, this is cool, life goes on. I think the ones that really like it are around our age, where Marvel Comics and Marvel trading cards and Marvel action figures were your education in these characters. I think they're the ones that really groove on it. So when we get to do autograph cards, so I just did an Avengers versus X-Men trading card set, and there is that part of me that was so excited because three of our big autographs in there are Brian Michael Bendis, Jason Aaron, and John Romita Jr. Now,
Goddamn.
yeah, now I've been, reading Jason Aaron, 10, 15 years, right? He's been around now.
Yeah, he did Scalped. Well, that was the big one.
Yep. Southern Bastards, all that. Yeah. Then you go back, and I've been reading Bendis for at this point now, 22, 23 years. And John Romita Jr. has been a part of my entire comics life.
Yeah, since like the early 80s, he was working on stuff. Yeah.
So having and John Romita Jr., shout out to him, is just, again, the way I talked about Kevin Eastman, John Romita Jr. is just an absolute class act of a guy in comics. I wish more people looked at comics and fans the way he does, because he just could not be a nicer, sweeter man.
I remember reading a charity sketch drive he did. I remember reading about it in Old Wizard magazine, where it was basically him drawing the same Spider-Man head sketch for like 24 hours straight.
Yeah, I remember
and it was
that.
like a world record or something. And like the crux of this thing is like, Yeah, he's just a really good dude. Like he's just
Yeah.
like the best guy. And I think that was really, really awesome.
I think that also is why his artwork has lasted as long as it has. It's not just the name, it's not the equity built. It's just that he's still a really good storyteller.
Yeah. So
You
now
know,
here are questions that I have, I guess, for like if people are collectors and they wanted to get this. Like, so when you get like autograph cards, for example, right? How many cards did John Reader Jr. sign that are then going to get distributed into?
that all depends on the volume for the pack out. That depends on, is it a blaster or is it a box? Is it going to Target and Walmart? Is it going to hobby shops?
But I mean, he did have a set number of cards that he signed, right?
Yes,
How
he
many?
definitely did.
Do you know
That I
how
don't know
many?
off the top of
Oh,
my
okay.
head, to be
All right.
honest with you.
I'm just
But
interested in that from a personal perspective. Whenever like you see like these autograph cards come out, you're like, well, how many of these were a thing?
yeah,
Speaking of which, I pulled like a 2003 Upper Deck Golf redemption card, and I was like, I think I may have gone too late for this one.
yeah.
I don't think they'll have that card still.
You know, it's worth looking into though.
I
I
should
mean,
send it in, right?
it wouldn't surprise me,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's fun, and I do, and I hope that this kind of answers a question that people might have about making trading cards. I love the big hits. Auto cards are great. The comic clippings cards are great. PMG cards in Metal Universe are great. All that stuff is awesome. My heart is always with the base set.
Yeah.
When I build a checklist, the base set is where my heart lives, and the reason why is because it's the only component to a trading card set you are guaranteed to be able to get everything. Now, I know people don't think that that sounds sexy or it sounds cool or exciting, but that mentality comes back from when I was a kid.
That's what I was actually going to add to here. Like I'm gonna say this with you too, is that not a
Yeah.
lot of my listeners are 8. So they don't understand that. But like when you were a kid, you and I, how many times did you copy a trading card by drawing it?
Oh, absolutely. I'll tell you this. At one point, I was using trading cards as stand-in for action figures as a kid. Like,
Wow, yeah,
I
that's cool.
I know that sounds kind of lame, but it was, that's just the way it was. And trading cards as a kid, especially Marvel trading cards, were all purpose. They were your encyclopedia. They were pieces of artwork.
Yeah.
They were, the thing you traded with your buddies.
It was how you learned stats.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine, guest of the show, Tim McCouga, very cool friend. Have a Nice Life, excellent band. He tagged me in a thing about how Eternity doesn't have any fighting skills, but
Yep.
Ego, the Living Planet, has fighting skills off the chart. And he's just like, this is an interesting thing to find out.
I don't care what anybody says. And if you tell me, no, that's not true, you're a liar. Most dudes and most guys and gals our age who were reading these cards, that was where they learned all the cosmic characters. That was where you learned the In-Betweener and the Living Tribunal,
Epoch,
and the Celestials, Epoch, all of it. You learned it all from the trading cards. And anybody says, no, that's not true, I was reading this, I'm calling you on that.
You were not reading
Not
that.
at all.
You weren't reading Jim Starlin stuff at the time. Like, no, you weren't.
Yeah.
You were reading X-Men and Spider-Man.
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
is fine.
It's 1991. You're reading X-Men, Spider-Man, and the closest you're getting to cosmic is the Infinity Gauntlet.
Right.
All
Or
of
like
those-
Operation Galactic Storm in Avengers. But even then, Avengers was a C tier title in the 90s.
Absolutely.
People forget that.
Absolutely it was.
Iron Man was a B level character in the 90s, like visually stunning, but nobody bought Iron Man really.
No, not at all. And I will agree with you on the Avengers thing, and I will raise you because the better book in the 90s and in the late 80s as well was Avengers West Coast.
Post Avengers, yeah. It was better.
Easily the better book. So yeah, when I do the base set, I always try to make sure that it's the coolest art for the character and the bio. Like my type team, I absolutely trust them. They're all just fabulous at what they do, and they're really great at summarizing these characters in a way that makes you feel like you've gotten a nice chunk of their history there. The base set is the only thing you're guaranteed to collect everything. So why shouldn't the base set look just as rad as the hits?
Yeah, and they do. They it's actually a really, really great. And so these Marvel Beginnings now. So I have a base set, right? Regular numbers. And then there's like 4 subsets in there?
Yes. Oh man, what do I have? I've got the comic clippings. I've got the flipped effects, creator autos. There was a weapons one. There was a super soldier insert for sure. Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff in there.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm looking
yeah,
the back right here, and it's like this box contains an assortment of Marvel Beginnings Volume 2 Series 1 trading cards. First off, the cards that we see are Valkyrie, like an old school Valkyrie is the large picture, and then the small one is the modern one.
Yep.
We see Man Thing looking relatively the same. That's an unchanged character design for the very specific reason is the first version of that character rips.
Yep. Is that Mike Klug, right?
Yeah, that's so good.
That's
we
awesome.
have a Beta Ray Bill and a Fin Fang Foom. So it's a very, very obscure thing. I think you guys may have seen Valkyrie and Man Thing. Like those might be the only two characters. If you're a casual MCU fan, those are the only ones that you might be familiar with. So we say randomly inserted into these specially marked packs are the following: base set red, base set blue, base set black, rainbow foil, orange rainbow bridge, blue rainbow cosmic cube, green rainbow mirror world, purple rainbow reality. There are illustration boards, deep lore, weapons plus, team formations, cosmic alpha, and a point in time, transparent post, flipped effects. So like there's numbered to 125 orange to 39 black. I like 39. Was that because of 1939? Okay, good. That's a wink. He winked, folks. I know you're just listening. Numbered to 25 gold, numbered 1 of 1, first appearance variants. So there's so much stuff that you can pull out of this box.
Yeah.
Like this box is filled to the brim. And it's funny because on the front, you have the 3 characters that are going to sell the cards, right? You have Spider-Man, Iron Man, and Black Panther.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, and there must be a Captain Marvel here somewhere. No? She's on the blaster.
She's on the blaster.
Yeah. So like clearly you have the front is like these are the characters, and on the back you're like, but here's the real shit that we're giving you. Right?
Yeah,
This is the stuff we're talking about.
Here's the coolest part with Beginnings: if you don't see your favorite character in that first set, there's still 2 more sets coming.
Yeah. You already said you got 2 sets you're working on. And actually, stay tuned. If you are a Patreon at patreon.com/JeffMay, stay tuned because I'm going to quiz TJ on some character, not quiz. I'm going to ask him for some characters in sets, and we'll see if they're either in part 1, or I don't know. He probably can't reveal if they're coming in the next ones, but he can give me probability and statistics maybe, because we're going to play that game. Yeah. TJ, we're going to we have to wrap this up. I've actually kept you for a little bit longer than I normally do because you're a damn delight, and I love having you here. So Marvel Beginnings Series 2 Volume 1, this is your baby right here. This is the baby that you took over and that you really sort of made it your own. Where can people get those? Just your random local card shops? Do we go go on websites?
Check your local card shops. You can check websites that carry Upper Deck product. Target and Walmart are carrying them. I'm starting to see Target be able to hang on to these a little bit longer than usual, which is great. So yeah, it's nice. This is all really accessible
and exciting.
Yeah, very
exciting. So definitely check that out if you guys want to find TJ on social media. And is it stars minus the A? Is that what it is? So it's the @ is @ stars my destination, but no A. So STRSMYDESTINATION.
Tell you a funny story about that real quick. Starman, my favorite DC series of all time. Mm-hmm. I did a 25th anniversary Starman panel with James Robinson.
Wow.
And, at the end we were asking, where can we find you? And he's like, you can find me here. And I tell the audience, you can find me at stars my destination, no A in the stars. And he goes, oh, that's great. And I was like, thank you. He goes, yeah, I love Alfred Bester. Thinking that it was about the Stars My Destination, the book. And in that moment, I couldn't tell him, no, it Stars My Destination because of your story arc on Starman.
Yeah, can't say that.
Yeah, it was one of those real nerdy moments there. But yes.
That's awesome. That is really cool. I actually have artwork from Tony Harris in my Happy Batman sketchbook. I also have a Batman sketchbook of just Batman being very happy. And it's filled with some bangers. There's Darwin Cooks in there. Tony Harris is in there. Who like Lee Bermejo did this gorgeous piece in there. It's insane.
I didn't think
I'll have to
Leader
show
Man
it to you
would draw
sometime.
Happy Batman.
It is wild, and they all draw
Okay.
Benjamin, just really killers. Folks, I'm sorry, I mean to geek out with TJ on here like when I'm not doing a podcast here. Well, look, you're here, you're listening to this show. If you're listening to this for free, thank you so much. If you're listening to this on the Patreon, I like you more. Like, thank you more, obviously. And if you are listening for free, if you head on over to patreon.com/JeffMay, you can get early access to uncensored episodes with the bonus content that TJ and I are about to record. And on top of that, you can get access to Patreon exclusives like Ugh Fine with Kim Crawl, the next episode, the specific episode of Nerd as well. You can get early access to Nerd as well with Dre Alvarez. You can also hear me on Tom and Jeff Watch Batman on Gamefully Unemployed, all the shows that I do with Adam Todd Brown on You Don't Even Like Podcasts, the network. And of course, I Must Break You on my YouTube every Wednesday at 2:00 Pacific. And folks, huge news. We're going to be opening a box, I believe this is a hobby box of Marvel Beginnings Series 1. So I feel like there's like one hit guarantee or something like that in here.
Yes.
So that's going to be very exciting. So you're going to definitely want to check that out. If you are listening on the Patreon, check it out tomorrow. If you are listening for free, it's already up on my YouTube. Go back and take a look at it. It's really fun. And I'm Hey There Jeffro on all the social medias, including YouTube. TJ, say goodbye to the freeloaders.
Freeloaders. Live the best life.
You guys are great. Thank you so much. And we will see you on patreon.com/JeffMay in a quick little second. Okay, bye.
Hey everyone, our artwork is created by Justin T. Brown, who can be found at Artness by Justin Brown on Instagram, as well as artnessbyjustinbrown.com. That dope music you heard is by Troy Nababon, available at Troy Nababon on Instagram, as well as at troynababon.com. Nababon is spelled Nababan, and boy, does that shred. Thank you all so much for listening. See you next time.